What do you see when you hear this? How about this? If you're like most people, you probably pictured two very specific films. Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction. Two classic Quentin Tarantino movies. Now, a lot of people have made videos about how Quentin Tarantino steals like an artist. But the truth is, barely any of them understand what he's really doing. In this video, I'm going to use Quentin Tarantino as an example to show how you can use old ideas and make them new in your writing. Because maybe you don't have to reinvent the wheel to create something truly original. Maybe, just maybe, you can learn how to make the ideas you love your own. Let's begin. Now, although this video is mainly going to be going over Quentin Tarantino's work, don't be fooled because this applies directly to you. Because at the end of the day, although Quentin Tarantino is mainly regarded as a filmmaker or a director, the truth is, he's a writer. He is first and foremost a writer. However, to make this analysis more interesting, we're going to mainly look at how he does this visually and see how you can apply that to your own writing. But first, we need to talk about music. Now, music in films isn't anything new. Jaws couldn't exist without... It's basically inseparable from the film. You cannot think of the shark without that music accompanying it. The same exact thing goes for Star Wars. Imagine if Star Wars didn't have any of the music. How would you feel about it? Would it be the same creation? Would it be the same story? It wouldn't. You cannot have the music without the imagery. They're a symbiosis. And fun fact, the same guy came up with both soundtracks. But I digress. Today, I'm not going to talk about an original score being created for a movie. Instead, I want to look at specifically what Tarantino does and many other filmmakers do, where they take existing music, existing songs, put them into their movie, and completely redefine how people perceive the song. The classic example is the Kill Bill riff I played for you earlier. Now, when you hear this riff, you're not thinking of the original song. You're thinking of Kill Bill. Why? It's because Tarantino took something that already existed, added a bunch of shit onto it, and made it his own thing. In other words, he made it new. To show you what I mean, let's actually look at the scene. Now, tell me, how much of what you actually just saw is new to you? Japanese guys in suits? I've seen that before. People wielding samurai swords? I've seen that before as well. The outfit that Beatrix Kiddo is wearing? I saw Bruce Lee wearing the exact same thing. The music? The music is an existing song. It's not an original song that was made for the movie. It already existed in the world. So what you're looking at in this scene is an amalgamation of things that are old being combined together in order to create something new. And yet, when you watch it, you're not thinking about how all of these things are unoriginal. You know, your mind isn't reminding you of Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon or whatever film where he was wearing a yellow suit. You're not being taken to older samurai movies where guys were wielding swords and killing each other. You are fully immersed in the thing you're seeing. And yet, everything you're seeing is a collage of something that came from somewhere else. Isn't that interesting? And this doesn't just happen in Kill Bill. Look at every single one of Quentin Tarantino's films, and you'll see this happens everywhere. It happens in every single one of his films. None of his films are original on the face of it. Everything that he has in his films is taken from somewhere else, but he takes and takes and takes from all these different inspirations, all these different sources. He combines it into one and he creates a masterpiece. He has not written a bad film in his entire career. Every single one of his films have been masterpieces. If any other director had made one of the films that he made, it would be considered their magnum opus. And yet, none of the things he's created are completely original. Every single film he's ever made and ever written was purely created from his own taste and his own inspirations. But if you go truly meta, if you really take a step back, you'll see that every film is like this. Even the original films, the very, very, very first moving picture films, the films of the train, the silent films, what were they? Were they original? No, they weren't original. What were they doing? They were taking what they were seeing in real life and putting it into a film. It's still not original. The entire world of filmmaking is an art form based on previous creations. You cannot have a film without something that came before it. It's impossible. It doesn't matter if the first film ever was one of filming a train, because there had to be a train to create a film about a train. Do you see what I mean? And the good news for you is, this is exactly the same with writing. Quentin Tarantino may have taken a very famous Hitchcock shot from Psycho and put it in Pulp Fiction in a different context. But I promise you, Hitchcock would have taken that shot from somewhere else, whether it be from another film that he saw or in real life, where he was in a car driving, someone crossed the road in front of him and looked at him in a funny way and he thought, that would make a good shot in one of my movies. Either way, the concept of having a camera positioned inside a car and filming someone crossing the street and looking at the camera, there's nothing unique about that. It's all borrowed. All of it comes from somewhere else. But this begs the question, why is it that some ideas stand out while others don't? Because let's face it, there are plenty of films where there might be different camera angles or shots inside cars, but they're completely forgettable. They don't stick out in your mind at all. Whereas the scene from Psycho and the scene from Pulp Fiction, they stick out like a sore thumb. Why is that? And more importantly, how does this affect your writing? The answer to this question lies in one particular area: taste. Taste is one of these strange qualities that people often take for granted. Because, let's face it, no one thinks they have bad taste. No one is ever going to admit that they have bad taste, right? Ask anyone, and they'll say their taste is absolutely incredible. Why? Because people are biased. No one would deliberately admit that they don't have any taste. Because if they do that, they're basically saying that they're uncool. And even though taste is completely subjective, there are still clearly things that have a bigger impact than others. Why is it that Hitchcock's films are so lauded and so loved by so many people even to this day? Sure, the stories are good and he was a visionary artist for his time, but that doesn't give us the full picture. He also had taste. So now the logical question is, how did he develop that taste? In the case of Hitchcock, it's actually pretty obvious. He just made a metric fuck ton of films. If you just go on his Wikipedia page and you scroll through his filmography, he's done like 100 films, over 100 films. And yet the films which are most celebrated all came one after the other quite late into his career, I think in the 60s or 70s. The way he developed his taste was just making a bunch of films. But over time, he began to develop his own aesthetic, his own idea of how he wants his films to look and how he wants his stories to unfold. And eventually, he just made these all-time classic films that still stand up really well to this day. Well, but what about Tarantino? What about him? Because he hasn't had the luxury of making hundreds of films. He hasn't even made 10 films yet in his entire career. So how did he develop his taste if he wasn't able to put the infinite amount of reps in that Hitchcock did? Well, for Tarantino, it's a similar thing. He may not have been directing film after film, honing his craft with each creation, but ever since Tarantino was conscious, he was consuming films. As a young boy, all he did was watch films. And as an adult, when he had these aspirations of breaking into the film industry but wasn't having any luck, he got a job at Blockbuster and absolutely loved it. He loved earning minimum wage at Blockbuster. Why? Because he got to watch films all day, and he got to talk about films all day, and he got to tell customers what they should watch. And this is how he developed his taste. He developed his taste from a very early age because he easily spent over 10,000 hours just watching films, learning what he liked and what he didn't like, and figuring out how he would tell his favorite stories. Either way, he put in a lot of work to develop his taste. It was not an overnight thing. It wasn't something he was born with. It's just that by the time he actually made his first film, he'd already had so much experience. He already knew exactly what he wanted in his film. And what you get is Reservoir Dogs, an aesthetically beautiful film, even though, compared to his later work, it's quite stripped down and not very rambunctious. But even so, even though Reservoir Dogs is his most stripped back film, it's still packed with taste. You can just taste it. This is why by the time Reservoir Dogs was made, it was teeming with taste. The characters he came up with were all amalgamations of the characters he loved to watch, and the story was just a product of his vast arsenal of inspiration. When you realize this, it's no wonder that every Tarantino film is considered an all-time great movie. He didn't have to go the Hitchcock route and produce 30 forgettable films before making one all-time classic. He already developed his taste just by consuming. And once that was done, all he had to do was sit down and write the story. So, how can you develop your taste as a writer? Well, as far as I can see it, you have two options. Do what Hitchcock did, but instead of making loads of films, do a lot of writing. Or do what Tarantino did and study great writing. But you know what I would do? I would do both, because why not? There is no rule in the universe that says you can't do both. And I think the best way to study it is by doing both. You need to do a lot of writing, and you need to study amazing writing as well. And with this two-thronged assault, there is no reason why you cannot become an exceptional writer. Now, I don't know what kind of writing you do, or what kind of writing you want to do. Whether you want to write books, screenplays, musicals, songs, content, it doesn't matter. You will develop your taste for all of these writing forms by doing them and studying them. How do you think the Beatles developed their taste? The answer is obvious. They listened to a lot of music and they played and wrote a lot of music. You do not get an Abbey Road, an album which tastes better than the greatest cheesecake in the world, without going through that process of learning and studying and recreating. It's impossible. You cannot have an Abbey Road without that process. There is no easy way of developing your taste. It's not something you're born with. It's not something you're given. It's not something you can buy on Amazon. It's something you need to develop for yourself. However, it's probably already better than you think. Now, I'm not just saying this because you're watching my video and I'm very biased. I'm just saying that your taste is probably better than you think. If you have clicked on this video and you resonate with Quentin Tarantino films, Hitchcock films, the Beatles, you probably have good taste because those people have amazing taste to create the things that they created. It's really that simple. And you could say, oh, art is subjective, art is this, art is that. It doesn't matter. Even if you don't like how Hitchcock films are scary, even if you don't like how Tarantino's films are violent, even if you don't like the way the Beatles, I don't know, some people don't like the Beatles for whatever reason. Even if you don't like aspects of these things from a subjective perspective, you can still recognize when an artwork is teeming with taste. I know I keep saying that, but it just has a ring to it. Don't you think? And Tarantino's work is the perfect exemplification of this, because nothing he made was something that he came up with devoid of any inspiration. Everything is based on something else that he liked. Django Unchained might be a different story to that of the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns, but come on, are we gonna try and pretend that a lot of the amazing imagery isn't coming from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and The Man with No Name? Kill Bill may be a unique story about an elite assassin assassin bride who's seeking revenge, but revenge stories exist. We have loads of kung fu movies. We have loads of people who are just these savage killers in these movies. But revenge movies aren't anything new. Neither are kung fu movies. What's new is the combination of everything coming together. So, how can you tie all of this back into your writing? I think the lesson can be distilled into something very simple. Write what you love. I know, it sounds cliche, but it's true. I mean, really think about it. I really don't think it has to be more complicated than that. I think people overcomplicate this stuff. How can you go wrong if you write what you love? Can't you see how writing what you love is the answer to what you want to write about? Let me just speak directly to you for a second, okay? You have taste. It doesn't matter what it is. You've got it. Maybe you've got good taste when it comes to fashion. Maybe it's in your song choices at a party. Maybe whenever you go to a party, you put these absolute bangers on and everyone's just loving it. And they think you're the guy. They think you should be like a DJ on radio or something. Or maybe it's in the kind of food you order at a restaurant. Maybe you're so good at selecting meals that people go to you for food recommendations. Why? Because you've got taste. You've got taste. Everyone has taste to a certain extent in something. Sure, some people have much better taste than others. I think the Beatles have a lot better taste in music than some death metal band. But that's just my biased perspective. You'll have taste in a specific area that could blow people's minds. So why can't you develop that taste and implement it in your writing? Seriously, why not? What's stopping you from doing that? What's stopping you from creating the most tasty piece of writing in the world? And if you approach writing in this way, you'll have no problem coming up with things to write about. Are you kidding? It's easy. It's easy. So, my friend, your task after watching this video is very, very simple. Find something that you love and see how you can apply it into the way you write. For example, this video is me doing that. Don't you see what I've been doing in this video? I've used my taste for filmmaking and ideas about originality and creativity and stuff like that to make this video you're watching right now. None of this video existed before I sat down to actually write about it. And once I started writing, the ideas just came. I didn't force anything. Not to toot my own horn, but just look at the connections I've made between all these different things and combined it into one cohesive message. Why can't you do that? Of course you can do that. Sure, it'll take practice. I'm not saying you'll be able to do it overnight, but it can be done. And it should be done. You should do it because you can make old ideas that you love, new, and by proxy, make them your own. Don't you want the ideas you love to be your own? Don't you think that would be amazing? I think it would be amazing. If you don't think you can do this, ask yourself why. Why can't you do this? No one's had the same experiences as you. No one's had the same perspectives as you. No one's been able to draw the same connections as you. And even if they haven't put those connections and those perspectives into writing and shared them with others. You can do that. I'm giving you permission right now to do that. Now, let me just offer a little caveat, okay? Because I know I said taste is relative and it's subjective, and it is. But this does not mean I'm giving you license to just be crass and stupid, okay? I'm not doing that. Just because everyone has an acquired taste does not mean other tastes don't resonate more than others. That's not true. There's a reason why a song like Here Comes the Sun resonates more than some death metal song about killing babies, okay? Now, does that mean the Beatles are better than the band that writes songs about killing babies? Of course not. Not from an absolute perspective, but from a relative perspective, we can understand why the songs on Abbey Road resonate more and create more of an emotional impact. This doesn't just have to be about the Beatles either. Punk rock songs like Janie Jones or London Calling by The Clash have a lot more taste than some third-rate punk band that just shouts stuff in a microphone. There's taste even in these different things. I love metal. I love heavy metal. I love hip hop. I think there are some fantastic pieces of taste in all genres of music, in all genres of art. And I'm just saying that some pieces of art resonate more with others because they're better at expressing themselves. And I don't want you to be discouraged either, because although you have taste, maybe it's not very developed, but I want you to understand that taste is not static. As I've said throughout this video, it's a skill that you develop. And you develop it by diving into the things you're curious about and love and exploring them to their fullest. And by diving into these things, you're not going to please everyone. As I said earlier, there are people who don't like the Beatles. There are people who don't like Tarantino films. Let me tell you a quick story to show you what I mean. Years ago, when Kill Bill first came out, I was probably 6 years old, so I didn't go to see it. But my parents went to go see it in the cinema. And they were watching it, you know, my dad was absolutely loving it. He couldn't get enough of it. His jaw was like open the whole time because of how spellbound he was. And he was completely engrossed, and that amazing anime sequence comes in, and he was just like, wow, I'm watching a masterpiece right now. Like, that's what he was thinking. And then he got shaken out of his fantasy by my mum, who was sitting next to him, because she told him, I want to leave. And my dad was shocked. He was like, what do you mean you want to leave? This is amazing. I don't want to leave. This film's incredible. But my mum was like, no, it's too violent. I don't like it. She didn't like the anime sequence, which is amazingly violent, but just incredible. And so they walk out. And that just goes to show you that when you do dive into the things you love, when you are developing your own unique taste, you will attract people to your work when you create. However, you will also repel people. So when I went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a similar thing happened. My mum didn't walk out. My mum quite likes Tarantino films. She just doesn't like violence. But we went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as a family at the cinema. And I remember there was someone sitting next to me, like an elderly woman. And halfway through the film, or even like an hour in, she got up and walked out. And that's because Tarantino's taste does not resonate with her. But look at Tarantino's films. They're extremely popular and they make a lot of money, and he has huge audiences. Because although he does repel a lot of people, a lot of other people recognize his taste and resonate with it. So keep that in mind. You're not going to please everyone. You know, not everyone watching this video is going to like this because, I don't know, they don't like my face. I don't know, something. Maybe they don't like my accent. Maybe they don't like the way I deliver. Maybe they don't like the editing style. I don't know. The point is, not everyone is going to like your stuff, and that's okay. Because if you make things based on your taste and based on the things that you love, there will still be people who do. Because everyone has different ways of viewing the world. We all have different experiences. We all have different perspectives. We all have different worldviews. We have different ideas about different things. And as a result, we see different things when we're watching the same thing. This is a very significant lesson that you should apply to your writing. You have your own ideas about the world. You have your own perspectives. You've had unique experiences that no one else has had. You have taste. You know what you like and you know what you hate. And your job is to express this in your writing as much as possible. If you do this for long enough, and if you really make a habit of studying fantastic writing, as well as writing, like actually writing and posting online, your authentic voice will emerge. It will emerge in just the same way as the Beatles ended up evolving from Love, Love Me Do, all the way to Abbey Road, where they're making all-time great masterpieces, one after the other. It's the same with Hitchcock. Hitchcock made all those films until he gradually developed his style, and he was making Psycho, he was making Vertigo, he was making Rear Window, he was making all these bangers. The same with Tarantino. Tarantino's films got better over time, even though his first few films were fantastic, but he was still learning his craft. He was still honing and getting better as a filmmaker. And it's the exact same thing with you as a writer. Start writing. Start studying the writing that you love. Develop your taste. Share on the internet. Develop your voice. And it's only a matter of time before the people you love start moving towards your work. I'll see you in the next one. I've got links in the description for everything. Sign up to my free magnetic writing guide, and I'll see you in the next video.